Coming up on this Monday edition of Daybreak, Korea and Qatar agreed to boost cooperation in the nuclear reactor and healthcare sectors while strengthening ties in construction, with one eye on the Arab nations hosting of the 2022 World Cup. China hints at holding a summit with North Korea soon. Beijing's top diplomat says their bilateral ties have a strong foundation that can't be broken by temporary events. Plus, 2 men are charged with the murder of the Kremlin critic Boris Nemtsov, and 3 other suspects appear before a court in Moscow. Daybreak begins now. Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Monday, March 9th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broome and you're tuned in to Daybreak. Our top story this morning, President Park Geun-hye is on her way back to Korea after a successful 4-nation trip to the Middle East. On her final stop in Qatar on Sunday, the Korean leader held talks with the Arab nation's emir to discuss ways for Korea to take part in his country's preparations for the 2022 World Cup. The two sides also agreed to expand cooperation in a wide range of areas. Our Choi San filed this report from Doha.
Qatar, the host of the World Cup in 2022, plans to spend $100 billion to build facilities, railway and roads ahead of the international sporting event. Korea has participated in major state infrastructure projects in Qatar for years, and now Korean companies are hoping to win orders for some $30 billion worth of World Cup projects to construct long-distance railways, roads, sewage treatment facilities, and World Cup stadiums. Meeting with the Qatari Emir on Sunday, President Park Geun-hye said there are so many potential areas of cooperation and that she's encouraged by Doha's great interest.
We believe Korean companies have an advantage in entering the Qatari market because their know-how and technology and infrastructure projects in the Middle East are highly noted.
The Qatari Emir said his country is ready to further develop and solidify the bilateral cooperative relationship. Seoul and Doha are also seeking to increase their investments in each other's economy. The leading Qatar Investment Authority Fund is reported to be interested in several Korean projects and is negotiating a $2 billion investment venture with the Korea Investment Corporation to enter a third country together. In the service sector, the two leaders have agreed to systemize the training and hiring of Korean workers in Qatar's airline, education and healthcare industries as the word is spread about Koreans' work ethic and credibility. Seoul and Doha have also agreed to strengthen cooperation in the fields of nuclear energy and healthcare. From nuclear energy, agriculture to cultural contents development, President Park has laid the groundwork to expand cooperation with the Middle East during her regional tour. She returns to Seoul on Monday. Choi Yoo-sun, Arirang News, Doha.
Now, President Park is going to have to overcome her jet lag pretty quick as she has a number of pressing state issues at hand. Officials say it's possible the president will visit U.S. Ambassador to South Korea Mark Lippert in hospital or at his Seoul residence to offer him some support as he recovers from the injuries he suffered during last week's appalling knife attack. She could also phone U.S. President Barack Obama to talk about Seoul's response to the attack and to reassure the U.S. that South Korea is fully committed to their decades-long alliance. Also, although nothing has been confirmed yet, it's likely that President Park will invite the leaders of Korea's rival parties to the presidential office this month to ask for cooperation in running state affairs. It's going to be a busy week at South Korea's National Assembly with a number of confirmation hearings scheduled to begin today following President Park Geun-hye's cabinet reshuffle last month. 8 nominees for cabinet positions will be in the hot seat this week. These sessions are expected to be heated as most nominees are facing allegations of tax evasion and/or real estate speculation. Monday's hearings will be for the nominees to head the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport and the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries. The hearing for the nominee to lead the Financial Services Commission begins on Tuesday. A summit between the leaders of China and North Korea could be on the cards soon after Beijing's top diplomat said President Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un could meet at a time when it is, quote, convenient. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi said the two countries have a strong foundation and should not be affected by what he called temporary events. Kim is expected to travel to Russia this May for an event marking the 70th anniversary of the Soviet Union's victory over Nazi Germany in World War II. The North Korean leader has not made the short trip to China since taking power in 2011. A US think tank is urging Washington to refocus its attention on North Korea's nuclear ambitions, saying efforts to solve Iran's nuclear matters have been distracting the United States of late. Nautilus says the US should strengthen its monitoring of Pyongyang's nuclear weapons programs and use its international clout to stop the North upgrading its nuclear capabilities. The report also assessed that North Korea's nuclear stockpile consists of between 7 to 16 warheads. According to diplomatic sources in Washington, the US might push for direct talks with North Korea next month. However, the sources note that the Iranian nuclear issue is more of a priority for now. Japan has reportedly drawn up a detailed compensation proposal for the victims of its wartime system of sexual enslavement. Quoting a high-level Japanese government source, Seoul-based Yonhap news agency reported Sunday that Tokyo crafted the proposal after the two countries held a round of talks on this very issue in January. However, the source said the plan is nowhere near the kind of government-level compensation Korea has been demanding. The proposal could be discussed when senior officials from the two countries meet later this month for a 7th round of talks on the issue. Korea's central bank is coming under enormous pressure to slash its key interest rate to head off the possibility of Korea falling into a deflationary period. Other countries have been quick to act, so this week's rate-setting meeting is garnering a lot of attention. Our Son Jung-in reports.
Alarm bells are ringing for Korea's top economic policymakers after recent data showed the country's inflation rate grew slower than Japan's last year for the first time in over 4 decades and actually recorded negative growth last month. Finance Minister Choi Kyung-hwan has expressed worries that the Korean economy could be headed down a deflationary path similar to Japan's 20 years ago.
We are deeply worried that the economy is slipping into deflation amid prolonged low consumer price rises. Excluding an increase in cigarette prices, Korea's consumer price growth has moved into negative territory.
Some are demanding the central bank roll up its sleeves to address the worsening situation. Unlike Japan and the Eurozone that are slashing interest rates and easing their monetary policies, Korea has kept its rate steady at 2% for the past 4 months. Amid growing pressure to lower its interest rate, the Bank of Korea is paying close attention to the growing value of the Korean won against the yen and the euro.
Korean exports to Japan and the EU plunged in January. We are watching the appreciation of the won against their currencies.
The Bank of Korea's next rate decision meeting takes place on Thursday. 18 countries have cut rates in the first quarter of 2015. Experts say Korea needs to do the same to help the country's exporters retain some price competitiveness in global markets. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
February was not a great month for Korea's auto industry, with production, sales and exports all plunging. Data from the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy shows that around 317,000 cars were manufactured in Korea last month. That's down 12% from the same month last year. Outbound shipments of Korean automobiles dropped almost 14% to 210,000 in the same period. And while domestic sales of Korean cars dropped over 4% last month, imported car sales spiked 25%. The ministry attributed the tumble in production and exports to the 5-day Lunar New Year holiday. And experts are warning that Korea's manufacturing sector, a key driver of the economy, has become worryingly dependent on the IT industry in recent years. They say the country needs to find a more balanced export structure. Our Connie Kim reports.
Korea's manufacturing sector has grown over the years, but a recent study shows it may be too dependent on the IT industry, prompting calls for diversification. The Hyundai Research Institute's index for how technologically advanced the country's exports are and how much added value they provide shows Korea lagged behind Germany, Japan, and the US in 2000, but caught up in 2013. That year, the figure for Korea was 106.9, lower than Japan and Germany, but higher than the US. A higher reading indicates the exports were created with more advanced technology. More than a quarter of Korean exports in the manufacturing sector in 2013 came from the IT sector. The figure for the semiconductor and electronic parts industry stood at 107 in the same year, higher than Japan and the US. Adding to the woes is the growth of China's exports. The figure for China's iron and steel exports stood at 104.5 in 2013, behind the US, Korea, Japan, and Germany. But the figure is nearly 15 points higher than it was in 2000. Looking at the index for petrochemical products, the gap between Korea and China is less than 5 points. With China's move in recent years to build global production sites, there are worries that Korea may be squeezed between China and developed countries. Experts say there's a need for Korea to foster growth in industries such as iron, steel, and petrochemicals. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Now, animated characters are loved by people all over the world, and Korea's character market has been taking huge strides forward in recent years. For this week's Industry Insight, we take a look at where Korea stands right now and what it can do to go to the next level. Our Kim Min-ji reports.
This 90-second cartoon featuring two larvae and their quirky adventures inside a drain is entertaining enough to attract viewers both young and old, even without dialogue. Created by Tuba Entertainment in 2011, Larva is now broadcast in over 100 countries and is being made into more than 1,000 products.
From the early stages of development, we focused on multinationalization. Body language is somewhat universal, so we could easily create a sensation across different markets.
But it's just one of few success stories. Korea has a relatively short history in the character business and lacks infrastructure and global networks. On top of this, there's still a deep-rooted perception that cartoon characters are just for kids.
Disney's Frozen is an example of an animation that can be enjoyed by the whole family. Korean characters need to target people of all ages, as a larger consumer base will boost the market.
So where does Korea's industry stand?
The local character market has grown over 60% in the last 5 years, and it's expected to top $8 billion this year. But despite the exponential growth, it makes up less than 5% of the global market.
Analysts say the government needs to open communication channels for local companies to connect with distributors and licensors from around the world. Case in point, the Culture Ministry plans to invest $350 million into the character and animation industries over the next 5 years.
From the fostering of artists to facilitating production and exports, we plan to provide companies with comprehensive assistance.
Roy Visual, creator of hit animated TV show Robocar Polly, says the drive is sure to boost Korea's potential. Korea has the manpower, so with systematic support for the process of creating a character or animation, local companies will be able to create stronger and better content. And with the right reinforcements and time, experts say Korea will be able to produce characters as iconic as Mickey Mouse. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
International Women's Day was marked around the world on Sunday, March 8th. It's a day to focus on women's achievements, but also to speak out for women's rights and equality, Kwon Swa reports.
Make it happen is the theme of this year's International Women's Day, a day to celebrate women's economic, political, and social achievements and call for greater awareness of women's rights. Equality for women was stressed at an event in Seoul organized by Korean Women's Associated United. The group's 31st annual Women's Day event included a march through the city and an award ceremony honoring the contributions made by and for women. In India, people took to the streets to protest violence against women in the wake of several high-profile rape cases that have shaken the country and the world in recent years.
I wanted my own country, to uplift the dignity of the women and to make an awareness towards the things which are pulling the women down.
Afghan men wore burqas to experience what it's like to be a woman in Afghanistan. Although the tradition of covering the body is not necessarily linked to the harsh treatment of women, the men used it as an opportunity to advocate for women's rights.
The wearing of burqa is imposed by men on women. We are here today to show our solidarity with women and experience this pain today by covering our faces with the burqa.
And in Ukraine, there was a different change of attire as female rebel fighters swapped their uniforms for evening dresses.
We really want peace so that our children are not being killed, as well as our civilians who are not guilty of anything.
World leaders gathered earlier this week to appeal for gender equality by the year 2030.
There are still five countries where not a single woman is represented in the parliament. I'm strongly urging the leaders of those countries to do more to empower women.
International Women's Day, designated by the United Nations, has been observed globally since the early 1990s. Kwon Swa, Arirang News.
Time now for a look through the global headlines we're following this Monday morning. For that, we turn to Eunice Kim, standing by at the News Centre. Good morning, Eunice.
And good morning to you, Mark. 2 suspects have been charged and 3 others arrested in the killing of outspoken Kremlin critic Boris Nemtsov. Anzor Gubashev and Zaur Dadayev were brought into court under heavy security. The men, both of Chechen origin, are accused of plotting and executing the opposition leader's murder 10 days ago. The latter of the 2 men is said to have admitted to being involved in the shooting. 3 other suspects remain in custody, while a 6th suspect, according to local reports, killed himself by detonating a grenade in a standoff with police in the Chechen capital of Grozny. The 55-year-old veteran opposition politician Boris Nemtsov was buried on Tuesday after being shot in the back 4 times at a bridge near the Kremlin. Now, Sunday marked 1 year since Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 vanished on its way from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing, together with the 239 people it was carrying. Relatives of the missing say they are not ready to move on.
There are plenty of people who've said, come on, Sarah, just, he's not coming back. Give in to the truth and just move on with your life. But I'm not ready to do that because there isn't any proof. And I can't really move on in all ways until there is.
An independent investigator released a 584-page interim report on Sunday that shed little light into one of the greatest mysteries in the aviation history. It said that there were no irregular behavioral signs in the plane's captain, first officer, and the cabin crew. It also said the battery of a flight recorder had expired more than a year before the flight. Family members in China called the report meaningless, adding that it offered no new evidence nor clear doubts into Malaysia's pronouncement in January that the event was an accident. Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak called the search the most complex and technically challenging in aviation history, but said his country remains committed to the search and is hopeful the plane will be found. Finally, the Nigerian militant group Boko Haram has pledged its allegiance to the Islamic State group, this according to an audio posting on the group's Twitter account. The clip declares IS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi as caliph of the Muslim world. Al-Baghdadi has already accepted pledges from other jihadist groups in the Middle East, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and North Africa. Boko Haram has struck terror in northeast Nigeria in its 6-year ongoing campaign to carve out an Islamic State in the region.
And a good Monday morning to you all as we kick things off with the 2015 HSBC Women's Champions as a fourth Korean took home a trophy in 5 weeks as Pohang finished first place after 4 rounds of play. Now, after taking the lead in the first round of the event, she never lost her lead throughout the entire 4 days of the tournament as she stormed through the final round with a bogey-free 2 under par performance to finish off at 15 under par overall for her 13th career title. And what a tournament it was for the top-ranked Lydia Ko, finishing off in second place, 2 strokes behind the winner, and the third-ranked Stacey Lewis finishing in third place at 11 under par overall. And speaking of trophies, 6 teams in the KBL hoping to claim the top trophy as the 2014-2015 KBL playoffs tipped off on Sunday with the best-of-5 series, first-round series between the Changwon LG Sakers and the Goyang Orions. Now, both teams trying to get the upper hand with a Game 1 victory, and it's quite a tight game in the first half, with LG taking a slim 38-34 lead going to halftime. But the second half, a different story as LG's Devon Jefferson goes down on the Orions defense, putting up 24 points and 17 boards, as the LG Sakers cruise through in the second half to take Game 1, 82-62. Well, it was the opening weekend in the K-League Classic with some exciting finishes in the league, including some matches on Sunday where the Cheonnam Dragons and Jeju United drew 1-1 and the Ulsan Hyundai Tigers defeated FC Seoul 2-0. But the big match, 2 possible champions facing off between the Suwon Samsung Bluewings and the Pohang Steelers. Now, with the match taking place at a packed Suwon World Cup Stadium, both sides play aggressively from the start, but the big difference maker in this match, Suwon defender Oh Bum-seok getting sent off with a red in the 45th minute of the match as Suwon plays with a man less in the second half. And while Suwon did their best to match Pohang despite being a man down, Son Jun-ho scores the only goal of the match in the 72nd minute as Pohang holds on for the 1-0 victory. Now, when Yoon Sung-min returned to the Kia Tigers this past Friday after failing to make the Baltimore Orioles spring training roster, he proved that success in the KBO doesn't necessarily translate to a successful career in the majors. But for Kang Jungho, well, so far, so good. That his first week of exhibition games with the Pittsburgh Pirates. He's played 3 games so far and is currently hitting .333 with 1 home run, which came in his first game against the Toronto Blue Jays. And while he did go 0 for 2 on Saturday, Pirates manager Clint Hurdle has been very impressed with Kang and hopes to see more of him in the remaining spring games. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. It was a perfect day to be outdoor yesterday. The high in Seoul marked that 15.1 degrees, warmest of the year. But things are about to cool down again, though the morning lows are kicking off pretty mild, above 5. But that's probably also the top temperatures of the day for the capital area, while the southern provinces will persist to enjoy spring-like mercury today. And right now it's raining in Jeju and Jeollado province, and the whole nation starts off the day under cloudy skies, but things will get brightened up as the day goes on. And on that note, let's take a closer look at the readings for today. The daytime high here in Seoul will climb up to 6, while Daegu and Busan will top out at 14, and Gwangju will rise to 9 this afternoon. And as for the other regions, Jeju Island and Daejeon should see a high of 9 and 7, and Dokdo will be even warmer, peaking at 10 this afternoon. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's going to do it for now. Korea Today is coming up at the top of the hour, 7 a.m. Korea time. Have a great day. Goodbye.